Hello and welcome to the Soul Shaking Love podcast. I'm your host, Valerie Green from CoachValerieGreen.com. And this podcast is dedicated to bringing you the top experts on mind, body, spirit connection, both with yourself and with your true love. And so, in that, I'm so excited to have Arielle Ford here, who is the love expert extraordinaire. Hi, Arielle.
Hi, good morning. How are you?
I'm wonderful. And how are you doing?
I'm great, just thirsty.
Good. Yes, hydration is a really important part of being in our own body and self-care and self-love. So that's what we're here to talk about. I'll tell you a little bit about Arielle, and then we will just dive into the topic. So basically, Arielle is the author of over 11 self-help books, and she just wrote a novel, which is what I'm excited to talk to her about today. She's a celebrated love and relationship expert, author, and speaker whose mission is to help people find love, keep love, and most importantly, be love, which is what we're going to talk about here. And her latest book is called The Love Thief, which is a roller coaster ride of love, betrayal, and unexpected transformation with a juicy revenge subplot and a surprise ending. One reviewer even said The Love Thief is an emotional journey where you'll finish so completely satisfied that you'll want a hypothetical cigarette, which I think is hilarious and totally true. It is just from start to finish a thriller, really, that teaches us about what love really is, which I think is brilliant. And so, first of all, Arielle, the tagline says, "He broke her heart, crushed her dreams until karma intervened." So, what is this book and what inspired you to write it?
Well, it's a romantic spiritual thriller, and I didn't want to write it. I never had writing a novel on my to-do list, but the book came to me like a movie in my head, and it really insisted on being written. It wouldn't go away, and I kept trying to make it go away. I'd already written 11 books. I didn't want to write another book, and I certainly didn't know how to write a novel. But it was very evident to me that the book was going to take place in both San Diego and Rishikesh, India. And I knew that if I were going to write this book that I didn't want to write, I'd have to go back to India to do some research. So I woke up one morning really annoyed that this book wouldn't go away. And I said to God, I said, listen, God, I don't want to write this book. But if I'm supposed to write this book, then I need to manifest a $7,000 business class ticket to India. And as soon as I said that, I had this sense of great relief. It was like, that's never going to happen. Okay, I am off the hook.
Oh my God, I love it.
2 days later, I had the ticket in my hand. It was just like so clear that my destiny was, this book was inside me and it was my job to get it out. And it took me 4.5 years to write it. So what inspired it? I didn't have a choice. And I knew and now that it's over, I'm so happy with the book. I'm so thrilled that I wrote it, even though it was the hardest thing I've ever done, because prior to this, I knew I was a good writer. You know, I had lots of evidence I was a good writer. The last book I turned in before this one was called Turn Your Mate into Your Soulmate. And my editor, Harper Collins, said to me, this book is so good, we're not going to have you change a word of it.
Oh my God. And it was, by the way.
Thank you.
I love that book.
and what I discovered is the only thing that writing a novel has in common with writing self-help is that they both use words. Other than that, there's no transference of skills. I had to start at the bottom. So I wrote and I rewrote, and I had editors and I had book doctors and I had all my friends that had authors helping me. I mean, I joke that the longest chapter in the book is the acknowledgments. I mean,
it is.
Yeah, but it was, you know, the truth is women have been suffering silently forever because betrayal is not talked about, because it tends to be that the women who get betrayed are smart, successful women who feel so much shame when it happens to them, they don't want to admit that they missed all the red flags. And I'm going to show you something. Hang on.
Yes, and by the way, I think that's so true.
Okay, can you see this?
Oh, wow. Yes. And
Okay.
for the people who are listening to the
Yes,
audio, then
I'll tell you who this is. This is a
yes.
picture of Jennifer Aniston, Halle Berry, Beyonce, Christy Brinkley, Sandra Bullock, Ava Longoria, Jennifer Garner, Princess Di, Mariah Carey, Maria Shriver, Gwen Stefani, Uma Thurman, Melania Trump, and Reese Witherspoon. Now, why am I showing you this picture? So, what do all these women have in common? They're all very famous, very successful, very beautiful, size 2, and rich. And what do they all have in common? They were all publicly betrayed. All of them. Can you imagine Jay-Z cheated on Beyonce? How is that possible? Right? And yet, when us ordinary women get betrayed, we think, oh, we're too old, we're too fat, we're not smart enough, we're not sexy enough, we're not this, we're not that. And the truth is, it happens to almost everyone. So if it's happened to you, don't live with if only I had
Right.
this, because I just named off the 10 most famous, beautiful, rich, skinny women in the world, and it happened to them. So on some level, you could almost say, well, I must be pretty special if it happened to me. Because
Yes.
these toxic narcissists, these sociopaths, don't pick ordinary women. They target and that you become prey for these men because you have something they want. You're
Absolutely.
successful, you're smart, you have an interesting life, you have money, which often they want to walk away with and do. So, that was sort of the thing that as I was writing, I saw would be a gift of the book, would be a takeaway of the book, that if it's happened to you, okay, A, let's make sure it doesn't happen again. And B, just know it wasn't your fault.
Yes. Yes.
Targeted and you're a victim.
That is such a good message that it's not your fault. And I would love to talk about that because I've heard a statistic that about 1 in 6 people is in either, on the narcissistic spectrum. And so that means that everybody knows, we know about 150 people, everybody, like we're close to about 150 people. That's the statistic I've heard. And so we all know about 6 of them.
And it really doesn't matter what the numbers are, because I've also heard that 1 in every 28 men is a sociopath. The thing that you need to understand is let's limit the conversation to toxic narcissist men and what happens to the women who get involved with them. And then also know that that there are red flags you can look for now that you've been through it.
Exactly.
Right? And there are also red flags to look for as you're dating,
Yes.
and seeing the red flags isn't going to necessarily protect you, because here's what happens. These men are generally charming, handsome, and extremely charismatic.
Yep.
And when they target you, what they're seeing is, oh, here's this beautiful, successful woman who has dedicated her life to whatever it is she's doing to be successful. And the one thing missing is love and romance.
Yep.
They know that that's your wound, that's your weak spot. And they know exactly what to say, exactly what to whisper in your ear to have you swoon. And then they do it really fast. That's called love bombing, right? They start whispering in your ear, whining and dining and romancing you, giving you the greatest sex of your life. And this is where the mistakes happen, because one, you're overtaken and you're having all these feelings. Oh my God, I'm being seen and heard. I'm hearing what I've been waiting my whole life to hear. Now you've had sex with them. So you're on this oxytocin drug high and you're bonded and everything's great for 5 or 6 weeks.
Yep.
It's just like
or 5 or 6 months. Like sometimes it lasts that long, but not longer than that.
Could. Yeah. And at some point, who they are shows up and it starts small. You catch them in a lie.
Yep.
And then they gaslight you. Oh no, you're crazy. You're making stuff up. That did not happen. And then you catch them in a bigger lie. But by this time, they're even smarter, and they say, you know what, you're right, I didn't tell you the truth about this because I'm so in love with you and I need you so much in my life, and I'm so afraid you won't respect me and you'll leave me. I'm sorry that I lied. I'll never do it again. And so no matter what you're doing and confronting with, two things are happening. One, they're turning it around.
Yep.
They're telling you what you want to hear, and you're completely hooked. You're a junkie. You're a complete love junkie at this point, and all you want is things to go back to. He's the most wonderful thing in the world. This is the greatest thing that ever happened. Because two things are happening. And we were talking earlier about anxious attachment types. You're living in this is my last chance. He's
Right.
the only one out there. I'm never going to have a chance to find love again. I know that good guy's in there because I just had the 6-week or 6-month experience. And
Right.
I've got to figure out, what can I do to make this right? And there's nothing you can do.
Exactly. Not with that particular man, which is why it's all about vetting and saying that, seeing if he is who he says he is.
And that takes time.
Yep.
Right? That's why God invented dating.
Yes.
Right? To give you the time to do it. You don't know. This is a stranger that you're dealing with. Now, it's a stranger who's making you feel good physically and emotionally, but you don't know anything about them, and so it's your job to constantly ask clarifying questions. You're having a conversation with them. They say something that makes you feel a little off, but you don't want to kill the mood.
Right.
You're not going to kill the mood. You're very going to sweetly say, oh, I think, didn't you just say ABC? Is that what you meant? Or could you tell me more about that?
Yep.
You have to ask the harder questions. Oh, well, I don't want to scare him off. Yes, you do.
Yes, you want to scare off the
Yes.
wrong one.
Yes.
But also what you do an excellent job of describing in the book is how to find what is called santosha, which is this inner contentment that you have no matter what is going on the outside. And if one has some kind of self-soothing practice, meditation is of course one that's much more than self-soothing. But that's what allows you to slow down and say, well, I might push him away, but I want to if he's the wrong guy for me. So I want to ask this deeper question. I want to pause and see if he actually has empathy when I share a feeling. And if he doesn't, I'm going to be really disappointed, but I can handle it because I have this inner contentment that is there no matter what.
That's a twofold thing, because these guys can fake empathy and they can cry at will.
It's true. It's true. And so that's why it has to do with our intuition, right? Which means we have to slow down.
Well, the problem with intuition is that it's really good when it's outside of you, but we're not always good with ourselves because we want to believe what we want to believe. So let's first distinguish out happiness versus santosha.
Yes.
So happiness is contingent upon people, places, things, and experiences. Oh, I can't wait to get that new car. I'll be so happy driving down the freeway with my hair blowing in the wind in my convertible BMW. You wreck the car and then you're not happy anymore. Santosha is, I'm going to choose to be content with whatever life throws my way. I know that the universe has my back. I know I'm a survivor. I know there will be good days and bad days, and I will be grateful and celebrate the good days, and I will be tolerant and accepting of the bad days. So this requires that you put on your big girl panties and become responsible for your own beliefs and emotions and feelings and thoughts.
Yes, exactly. Responsible and aware. Because I find that, and I have an earned secure attachment style as well. And we were talking about that in the beginning. And people who have an insecure attachment style tend to not be able to get out of their heads and just ruminate about fear-based stories like, is he with another woman, or why didn't he call her? Is he losing his feelings for me? Or I don't want to rock the boat because he's the only one, etc. And so in order to develop that santosha, it's important to do spiritual practice or some kind of grounding practice to be able to feel our own feelings rather than be in stories in our head. And that's what you do a brilliant job in The Love Thief of describing Holly, the main character. She's after her betrayal. She goes to India and she meets a series of spiritual teachers that help her to start to grieve and receive compassion and do really basic meditation practices and breathing exercises that help her to feel her feelings and to feel self-compassion and to be able to access that state of santosha. And you do such a great job too of, she's such a believable character because she is stuck in her head and she's like, my mom's really woo and I don't really believe in this stuff, but I'm really miserable, so I'm going to try it, and it's just, everybody can really relate to her.
Yeah. She actually has a thing called a misery scale.
Yes.
And day she wakes up and says, where am I? Am I at a number 10 misery level or 10
yes
plus, or am I at a 2? And she's taught how to breathe, how to do, breathe in for 4, hold for 4, breathe out for 4, hold for 4. And she practices the breathing. And she never wanted to meditate. She never wanted to do yoga because that was her mother's thing. She's the only child of a single new age baby boomer mother who hung dream catchers over her crib. So she's a reaction to all of this. She's not a seeker, and yet she's in so much pain that that the help begins to come to her. So she has to learn how to do that. So Holly is every woman. She's a really nice girl, and she's funny as can be, and she's snarky.
Yes.
She's friendly, and she's not a drama queen. She's never been a drama queen. She does. And suddenly, for the first time in her life, she's experiencing this roller coaster of emotions of anger and hate and rage to the depths of depression and sadness and suicidal ideation. Never had any of that. She had a typical childhood, and now she's suffering, and the universe supports her. She ends up going to India, not because it's a spiritual place, but because she's a chef and she wants to learn how to cook Indian comfort food. And she goes into a bookstore not to get a spiritual book, but she's in search of caffeine because it's early in the morning. And, the bookstore owner gives her a cup of chai. And it turns out that the bookstore owner is a retired professor of counseling psychology.
Exactly.
Who is also having his own suffering, and they become inadvertent healing buddies with each other. So she has all these magical things that happened. And, along the way, life gets better and better and better. And then she gets the opportunity for revenge on her ex, because he's not just broken her heart. He has stolen all her money. He ruined her friend, her best friend and business partnership. I mean, he decimated her life. And an opportunity comes along where she can get revenge without killing him and without doing anything illegal. And
and it's just working within the, I don't want to give it away, right? Because it's actually a really exciting story, but it's not coming from her anger anymore. She actually goes through the grieving process because of the support that she gets. And then it's a type of revenge that is inside the system with the way the system works. I won't give it away more than that, but it's such a beautiful story because then Holly has a lot of character development with really learning what is unconditional love. And I was love bombed. That's not what love really is. What is love really? And she gets to have that experience. And then the revenge isn't something that comes from her, right? It's something that is karma in action that she gets to participate in, so that she
it also gives her the opportunity to save her own life. Because if she doesn't participate, her life's going to be over in an even worse way. So, she gets to take care of herself. She gets to do the right thing, right? She gets supported by the universe. And and it's so funny because I've since learned that most people who write fiction have there's a way to do it. Like you you plot out all the characters and you plot out the storyline and you do it all on a whiteboard. I didn't do any of that. All I ever did was sit down, close my eyes, and see what the next part of the movie was. Like it just
Wow.
coming to me as a movie. And so I never had writer's block. I never got stuck. I would just, if the movie wasn't there that day, I wouldn't write, or I
Amazing.
went out for a walk and suddenly it was like, oh, so this is what happens next. Then I would go and write. So it was a very mystical experience, sort of birthing this book. And
Definitely.
now that it's all over, when I read it, and I've had to read it many, many times because I also did the line edit on it,
Oh my God.
I sometimes wonder, like, who wrote this? Who came up with this? So yeah. So it's got, it's entertaining as a summer beach read,
It
and
is.
on a deeper level, it has a great deal of healing and transformation in it.
Exactly. And so I think that the most poignant question about Holly's healing and transformation is that she really does discover what love is, what is unconditional love, just through her experiences. And so I know that this is also a big part of your life purpose, is to teach what is love. And you do such an entertaining job and in such a meaningful way describing it in the book. So we're not giving it away if you just tell us your definition
Well,
here.
well, it's a couple of things. So most people believe love is a feeling. I know I love you because it feels like champagne bubbles are going through my blood and my nervous system. And even though I've known you for 5 seconds, we're meant to spend our lives together. And this is the state that we call being in love. And it is nature's greatest drug high. It's
Yep.
your brain on drugs, on
Yep.
oxytocin, adrenaline, and dopamine, and serotonin. And nothing feels better. And what it is nature's trick to get us to procreate and keep the species going.
Yep.
What it isn't is love. That it
Yeah.
has
I
no
mean,
resemblance
it's
to real love.
I like to call it because it's not just lust. It does feel like love, but it's falling in love. It's not love. It's the
Yeah.
experience of falling,
Well,
right? Falling in love.
I like to call it the socially acceptable form of insanity.
Yes,
Because
totally.
you're
Because it
you're
is. You're like on this
literally
drug high.
incapable of taking care of yourself because you're just hooked on this feeling,
It
and
is.
it's
It's a
right,
cocktail of
right.
hormones.
It's wonderful. But really, there's science around love. There's lots of science around love. And what they have been able to prove is that true, mature adult love is not a feeling. It's a behavior, and it's a
Mm.
choice, and it's a decision, and it's an action, and it's a way of being. And you can ask anybody who's married to their soulmate life partner, and they will tell you there are days when you hate your partner, and it doesn't mean that you don't love them, right? Because you've committed, you've taken sacred vows, you've gone all in, and you're, having these moments where the feeling is, I can't stand you. But the truth is you love them. So it's a maturing process. But
Absolutely.
if you're going to make a lifelong decision based on the feelings of being in love, I can guarantee you it's not going to work, because what the science, again, what they've shown with the marriage effect is that what it takes to have a lifelong, healthy, happy relationship is you need connection, compatibility, good communication, which thank God can be learned,
Yes.
some chemistry, although chemistry, strangely enough, is not the most important factor. The single most important factor in predicting long-term happiness is having a shared vision for the future.
Absolutely. John Gottman's research. Yep.
Love John Gottman. Worship at the temple of John Gottman and Harville Hendrix. These guys know what they're talking about.
Absolutely.
Harville Hendrix says the purpose of soulmate love is to take sacred vows so that you can create a safe container in which all your childhood wounds can come up to be healed.
Yes. Yes.
Healing your childhood wounds is ugly and messy and painful.
Oh,
But
don't I know it?
right? That's the purpose of marriage. It's a sacred spiritual path. And if
Yep.
you don't want to do the path, that's okay. You can choose not to. You can choose just to live with somebody and not take the vows. However, what you don't get is you don't get the marriage effect benefits. The marriage effect benefits are when you have sacred vows and you're in a happy long-term relationship, you live longer, you have a happier life, you heal faster. And you don't get that without taking the sacred vows. Now, I asked Harville, why is that? Why is it you just can't be in this happy, committed partnership, and get the benefits? And he said they don't know for sure, but his theory is that when you're not married, when you don't legally get married and take sacred vows, there's a part of your reptilian brain that still feels unsafe, that this person could walk out easily at any time. It's a little harder when you've proclaimed to the world and to God and to the legal system, this is my partner. This is my
Absolutely.
partner.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, I would go a step further with that. And I would love to interview Harville about that too. And just say that.
I can make that. I can give you his contact info. So just email me.
Great. Yeah. And if anyone who's listening or watching has other suggestions for people that we can bring on, then, I want to interview all the love experts, because I think that it's important that people learn what love really is. And I mean, you just said so many topics that could be a whole nother interview. I think the books that you wrote that explain what you just said well are both Wabi Sabi Love and Turn Your Mate into Your Soulmate. That's like really how to use relationship as spiritual practice. And I know you've written other books, but what I want to say about what you said, that love is not a feeling. What I want to say is that living true to our values is a feeling. And if unconditional love is one of our values, then like if I'm living true to my value of unconditional love, that is a feeling, but it's different than that feeling of what I just called falling in love, like, or the honeymoon phase. It's a feeling of rightness. And that's also the same feeling that I get when I'm feeling my intuition and when I'm, in the flow and being supported with synchronicity, like Holly experienced in the story.
One thing I do want to say is that even though love isn't essentially a feeling, there are good feelings,
right,
when you're with your love partner.
Exactly.
It's just not this swept away, swooning, oh my God, drug high.
Yes.
But there are good feelings, but the feelings come and go. So that's what you have to have, this all-in commitment to your partner.
Yes.
Because on the days when they're being highly annoying, which they will be, and as you will be for them, because that's what happens when you put two humans in a container together. They piss each other off, they press each other's buttons, and that's actually part of the plan, so we forget that. The feelings come and go. So you can't be making these big decisions. Well, because you hear this all the time. Well, I still love him, but I'm no longer in love with him. And it's just like we're roommates now. So that I'm going to go in pursuit of the drug high. The grass is over. So here are the statistics you need to know.
Yep.
We all know that in the United States, 50% of first marriages end in divorce. That's just a hard, cold fact, right? What nobody seems to know is that 64% of second marriages and 72% of third marriages end in divorce. Now, why is that? Did you marry the same person a second or third time? Doesn't matter. You are the same person the second and third time. You haven't done the work. You haven't done the growth work. And that's also why you sometimes see people. I just was with somebody at dinner the other night who was telling me she and her husband were married for 28 years. They were divorced for 7 years. They just remarried.
Wow.
What happened? It's like, well, I came to understand what a good thing we had. That this was a trustable man who had my back, who was devoted to me and the kids. And I had just gotten bored, and I was bored with me. I needed to go in, and I was the one who needed to grow and change, even though I was pointing the finger saying, oh, he does the same thing over and over again. Well, I have to say, that's sort of one of the benefits of marriage, is having a predictable partner who is consistent. It's like I I can predict within 3 minutes every morning what time I'll hear the shower go on. My husband's so predictable. I know what time he gets up. He goes and he does his workout. He feeds the cat. He takes the garbages out. And every morning at 7:57 or 7:58, the shower goes on. And it just makes me so happy because there's new science out from, what's his name, Arthur Brooks, the happiness professor at Harvard, showing that having a routine is one of the keys to having a happy life.
Ah, interesting.
Particularly a morning routine.
Right.
So, so yes, does it get a little boring? Everything gets a little boring at some time. And it's your job to be personally responsible to either accept it and say, okay, let me kick back and do nothing, or let me see what kind of distraction I'm needing right now. But it is not your partner's job to entertain you.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, I love what you're saying because I know you also interviewed Neil Donald Walsh for The Love Thief. And he is one of my favorite spiritual teachers as well. And I love his book on relationships. And I think that he says it really well when he says the purpose of relationship is for you to practice being love, not to get love from the other person. It's kind of like we lift weights at the gym. Why? Because if you don't have resistance, you don't grow. If you just did easy workouts, you would stay the same strength. So it's the same thing. It's easy for me to be like, I love everyone and I love everything when I'm by myself. But put my husband in the room, who's my imago, by the way, which is why I want to interview Howell Hendricks. He triggers the hell out of me. And so then that's the resistance, right? Like when I'm angry at him, that's my resistance to grow, being loving, even when I'm angry. And that doesn't mean that I'll just be a pushover. It means that I'm going to really pay attention to my feelings and needs and what is it that I want instead. And then how do I say that in a way that's also respectful of him? Because that's what love is that I love myself and my own feelings, and I love him and his feelings and his needs, and that I'm going to talk to him like we're on the same team. And do you think that's easy when I'm upset? Absolutely not, right?
Well,
so
that's why I believe in taking time outs, because when I get I just say, you know what? I need to go for a walk. I need to take a lavender bath. I need to go do some tapping. I need to go get on my Inner Balance Heart Math app. I have a very deep spiritual toolkit of things.
Exactly.
And then I go and see, well, what triggered me about this? What is it I need to say? So I can have a rational conversation, and he'll do the same thing. We just need to get out of the room because I don't want to be reactive.
Right.
And I want to be responsible for whatever this is.
Exactly. And what that means is, sorry, but
that's maturity,
it's maturity. And what I want to say is, in my opinion, that's what unconditional love, a big part of what it is, that I'm going to give myself unconditional acceptance, interested curiosity for my own feelings, and self-compassion for my own feelings and needs. And that no matter what, I'm going to be unconditionally loving towards others as well. And it is absolutely a commitment. Like, I don't feel like it. But what comes full circle, I believe, is if we have that feeling of santosha inside. That's what allows us to take that time out, to realize, wait, I'm going to do what feels right for me, not just what feels good in the moment.
There's a really good visual that my friend Sadhvi Ji, who's one of the stars of the book, is a real person. She's a real holy woman in India.
Oh, yes.
The way she describes santosha is, imagine that you're 50 feet under the water and you're sitting on the bottom of the ocean in lotus position. And you're just sitting and the water's warm and it's comfortable and it's effortless. But 50 feet above you, the ocean's storming and there are big waves and high winds and it's turbulent, but you're sitting on the bottom in peace. You're choosing just to sit there until it blows over. And I love that because it's true. We need to create a space in our own heart that is the bottom of the ocean for us, where we are loved and honored, and we're safe and we're comfortable. Like I often see myself sitting in my heart on this lounge chair, this very, velvety queen
Mm.
throne like lounge chair, and that's my safe place. And then on the walls of my heart are all the words that I want to live by, whether it's, love and contentment and peace and beauty and happiness and pleasure and chocolate or whatever it is. I just surround myself with all of that, and then I get filled up, and a lot of times I'll do this practice that I teach my clients, which is a morning gratitude process. And it's super easy.
Mm.
You sit down and you write a list of all the people in your life that you love, that love you. Your parents, your siblings, your best friend, your partner, your cats, your dogs, your coworkers. Make a list. It could be 10 people, it could be 20 people, whatever it is. But those people exist. You love them and they love you. And that's, irrefutable. And then as you're dropping from your head to your heart, you imagine each person in your heart. Oh, here's mom. I'm going to send mom a wave of
Mm.
love. Oh, here's Cooper, my dog. I'm sending Cooper a wave of love. And you do that every morning. And by the time you're done doing it, you have now filled yourself up fully to change your love frequency to super high. You
Absolutely.
know there's no shortage of love in the world because you are working love. So if you are single and you do this, you now make your heart more magnetic to romantic love, because you're
Yes.
not walking around in this love deficit. Oh, I'm so lonely. There's nobody out there. I'm too old. I'm too fat. I'm too damaged. All the good ones are taken. The one that was got away. I'll never be loved again. I'm unworthy. All that bullshit is
Sums it
gone
up.
because you just connected on a frequency of love that has filled you up. And it needs to
Yes.
be a daily practice. You can't just do this stuff one time. You know,
Absolutely.
it's just like, you break your arm and you put it in a cast for one day and you expect it to heal. No, if you have a broken piece of you, it's your job to work on it every single day.
Yeah, exactly. In a wabi sabi way, right? That
Yes,
it's more beautiful in the broken places because that's how the light gets in.
right.
Um,
Exactly.
and, I think that what you just said is a beautiful, what you call feelingization.
Yes.
And what that means is that if we feel the way that it feels inside of us, and it's a different feeling for everybody, it's like, what is that body sensation of love that I share with my mom versus that I share with a pet versus that I share with a friend? And it's a different flavor. And I love that your practice is to think of 10 people. And I think that it can also be animals, like a
Oh, it's
dog or
definitely
a
animal.
spirit. Right.
So,
Um,
so here's my definition of a soulmate. I believe a soulmate is someone or something with whom you can completely be yourself, someone or something with whom you share unconditional love. And when you look into their eyes, you have the feeling of being home. And certainly we
yes.
do that with our pets. We look into their eyes, and sometimes that's a stronger, more visceral feeling than with people. It's easier to love your cats and your dogs. They're so accepting of you. You can have
Yes.
pet soulmates. Like I have two cats. One of my cats is a soulmate cat, the other one is a pet, and we love each other and it's great. But that feeling of deep, eternal connection just isn't there. you know
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
I believe in soulmate pets for sure.
Yes, absolutely. And your book, The Soulmate Secret, by the way, is a wonderful book full of those feelingizations where you get yourself in that feeling state of what it means to be unconditionally loved and loving. That's not just that falling in love feeling. That's
Yeah.
actually the feeling of what love actually is, which is feeling inside of our body. Like it's a felt sense that we feel that isn't dependent on circumstances on the outside. And so that's why
I
it's
just
important to do a practice, right?
Yes, and one way to do a practice is as a bonus to the love thief. which you can get for free, the bonus at thelovethief.com, I had 8 of the world's top yoga teachers, people like Sean Korn, each make a video. I assign them a negative emotion like anger, grief, betrayal, heartbreak, uncertainty. And they each made a video where they talked about the yoga philosophy of anger and then gave the yoga
Ooh,
poses to let go of anger, or the yoga philosophy of heartbreak and the yoga poses to heal heartbreak. So if you go to
right.
thelovethief.com, you can download those videos for free.
Amazing. I didn't even know that. So I will
Yeah.
definitely download them because I think that The Love Thief is such a wonderful story. It's very entertaining and you use such sensory language. It really feels like you're in India with, the rickshaw noises and the smells and the colors and the tastes. And it is such a brilliant description of Holly's healing process through her heart being broken and her misery level being a 10 plus plus, to then having these experiences that teach her what love really is and allow her to let go of the anger and the sadness and the grief and allow those to flow through her. And it's such a beautiful experience that you had her go to India, just because there were so many different practices that she learned and so many different empathic guides that helped her to feel her feelings and to make sense of them and to get out of this story in her head and to touch with her intuition and her self-compassion and self-empathy and learn what love really is. And so I think it's one thing to have you describe it in this interview, which is wonderful that think of 10 people or animals, or I even think it can be people that you used to love that are no longer in their bodies, like your beloved grandmother or something like that. And then ask yourself, how does that feel to receive and give love? And that can be kind of a practice to be like, well, that's different than the love bombing, than the falling in love feeling. This is actually sustainable. And what actions can I take from this feeling to express my love authentically, no matter what's going on around me? And so it's one thing to say that, and it's much more entertaining to read about Holly's journey to learn that herself, because there's such an interesting cast of characters and, such a brilliant story archetype with all this foreshadowing where you're like, oh my God, I need to know what happens.
Yeah, it's a beautiful story, I have to say. And the other big takeaway from the book is that I really wanted people to see that the worst time of your life will give birth to the greatest life you could ever lead. But
Right.
when you're at the bottom of the pit, you don't know it. You think, oh, my life is over. It's never going to be good again. And then when you're able to move forward and look at it in retrospect, look at it in the rearview mirror, you go, thank God that happened to me. I wouldn't be where I am today had I not experienced that tragedy.
Absolutely.
And that's one of the things I really wanted people to see, because clearly anybody would look at Holly's life at that moment where she's near death and her whole life's destroyed and think, oh, this poor girl. And yet by the end of the book, if you said to Holly, do you wish you would have never met him? She would say, oh God, no, thank
Right.
God.
Exactly.
Thank God I suffered.
Right. And that's such a wonderful message, because I think it's one thing to say that, hey, everything is a gift, right? This is happening for a positive reason, right? It's one thing to say that. It's another thing to actually experience a story of that happening.
Yeah.
And the way that you describe that happening for Holly in the book is just so touching and and realistic. Like, she didn't just have one conversation that let her spill all of her grief, right? It was over time, and she moved through the stages of grief. And I believe, I forgot the author of the 5 stages of grief, but he recently wrote another book.
David Kessler or Elizabeth
Right.
Ross.
I think
Elizabeth
David Kessler.
Ross, he was her mentee.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And so
Cool.
she wrote the 5 stages of grief. She was the grief expert. And then David recently wrote a book about the 6th stage.
The sixth, right, which is what we're talking about now, which is meaning.
Yes.
And that is the phenomenon that we're talking about, because what the attitude of saying, I'm at my deepest misery, like this, why God, why is this happening to me? This is horrible. And the idea that inside of that, that there is a meaning in this, that through the 5 stages of grief, when you're going through the worst part of the grief and the anger and all of that, that at the end, if you can say that who I became in this process is something I'm really grateful for, and I'm grateful it happened to me because of who I became, then that's what we need to do to find the meaning. And the way that you wrote The Love Thief was such a beautiful description of that process for Holly. And because I think that's the hardest part of grieving to understand. When we're in our worst misery, usually we're not thinking like, oh, there's a positive reason that this is happening. I mean, if we have a strong spiritual belief system, then maybe we say that to ourselves. But reading stories about Holly's journey from being betrayed to healing and grieving to then coming full circle to the end of being authentically grateful that it all happened to her. It's such a beautiful description that I think will inspire other people to then apply it to their own lives. And it's like, oh, well, I just had a heartbreak, but I remember The Love Thief and what happened to Holly. And so that can happen to me too, that I can find meaning and purpose in this eventually.
And you will. That's just how life goes.
Yes, exactly. And, and we can talk all about it. And of course, I can interview you on how to grieve. And I have actually interviewed a couple of people on how to grieve, and all of that. And it's such an entertaining story that also teaches the lessons within the story. So I'm just happy to ask you about how people can get your book so that they can read it and be entertained and learn.
Yeah, it's super easy. Just go to thelovethief.com. And there are buttons to get it on Amazon or barnesandnoble.com. It's super easy to find.
Yes, of course. And I will put the link below this video and in the show notes of the podcast, just so that people have it. And then also, I think that because I originally wanted to interview you about Wabi Sabi Love, but then I read The Love Thief and thought, oh gosh, this is such a good book. We can have hours of interviews about that. But I believe that you also shared a lot of concepts in this interview from Wabi Sabi Love and from how to turn your mate into your soulmate, because it's all about how to use relationship for growth. And so I'll put the links to those books in there too. And then I think the book where you have the most feelingizations, which is the practice of feeling that unconditional love and feeling the way you want to feel when you attract the love that you want to attract, is so, I think you have over 20 feelingizations, which are like guided practices in the Soulmate Secret.
I do. And then also at my website at soulmatesecret.com, there's a tab called Free Stuff, and all the feelingizations are there as well. So you can download them and practice them as well.
Absolutely. You are just such a treasure trove of resources for how people can experience unconditional love and attract love and be love. And so I am just thrilled to, I'll just paste all the links to that below the video to, the Love Thief and the books Wabi Sabi Love and Turn Your Mate into Your Soulmate and The Soulmate Secret, just because I think that you shared a lot of gems from all of those books in this interview. So if people want to find out how they can learn more, then I will make that easy.
And I'm also on Instagram, Arielle Ford 44 at Instagram. And I have a YouTube channel, and I have some really fun videos on there, everything from, why to have sex before the first date.
Oh,
like that. Yeah. So my YouTube, yeah.
Before the first date. Oh, okay. That's very entertaining. or intriguing.
Yeah.
So yes, I mean, I'm just thrilled to teach everybody who has not heard about you about all of your books, because I do think that you're one of the most prolific authors and teachers and speakers about how to attract love and sustain love and be love.
Well, thank you.
And if people are interested in learning about how, your take on unconditional love, and if they want to read a really entertaining, and it actually is a thriller. I mean, I know that you took a course on how to write a thriller of, in order to make the book, which you say at the end. It's a thrilling read. It's like, I didn't want to put it down. I just kept on wanting to read it and highlight it. So I definitely think that whether you like to read the how-to, because Arielle's written 11 nonfiction books, or if you want to read a fun novel that's an entertaining thriller, then The Love Thief is her latest one, then I think that people will be thrilled to hear about your work, and I am thrilled to be sharing it. And so is there anything else that you want to say just to leave our audience?
You did a great job of saying all of that. So thank you very much for that. Now, the only thing I really want people to remember is there's no shortage of love in the world. And there's this great line in A Course in Miracles that I really love, which says, the only thing that can be missing in any situation is that which you are not giving.
Yes.
So if the complaint is, I don't have enough love in my life, then it's time to start giving more love. And you can give it to everybody, everywhere, all the time.
Yes, so, starting with oneself, of course.
Yes, of course. Definitely with yourself.
Because I mean, just as an aside, I think that, like, if we're talking about love bombing and all of that, it's important to give love to the people that are capable of giving it back. As well. And so that's like tying full circle to the vetting and making sure that it's not love bombing. But given all that, I 100% agree that anything, and I love A Course in Miracles too, that anything that's missing is something we're not giving. And you say that quote in the book several times, I believe. And it's just so poignant, because that's what it means to be love.
Exactly.
So with that, I wish everybody a love-filled day, and I encourage everyone to read more of Arielle's books, because she's just a treasure trove of wisdom and love.
Thank you.